6 years ago, uncertain of what to play next, I stumbled upon a game called Yakuza Kiwami, a 2018 remake of the original Yakuza from 2006. It caught my interest with its Japanese setting and crime-focused narrative. After doing a bit more research, I decided that it was worth a shot. I was in the middle of summer break with not much to do, so what did I have to lose? Worst case scenario, I'd waste a couple of hours and could trade the game in. As it turns out, Yakuza Kiwami never got traded in. Instead, it served as my entry point into what I'd argue is one of the best franchises in the medium of video games. If you'll indulge me for just a few minutes, I'll tell you exactly what makes the Yakuza series so remarkable. In case you're unfamiliar with the term, Yakuza refers to the members of Japan's organized crime syndicates, think mafia, in the land of the rising sun. While the Yakuza's influence and population in real life has drastically diminished over the last number of decades, in the game series, the tendrils of the Yakuza extend throughout Japan's law enforcement ranks and even government. Corruption is an omnipresent theme throughout the franchise, making trust an invaluable commodity. Kazuma Kiryu is one member of the Yakuza and the focus of most of the franchise's mainline games. That's not to say that he's the only protagonist. You play as many different characters, but Kiryu always serves as Yakuza's anchor.
Kiryu-san, 俺たちのために死んでくれ! 頼む!
To even begin to outline the overarching narrative of this series is, well, incredibly daunting. After all, there are currently 9 mainline entries, with the most recent having just released earlier this year. To put things as succinctly as I can, each game chronicles the struggles of Kazuma as he navigates the seedy underworld of the Yakuza. In one title, that may mean that Kazuma is forced to play the organization's political games as he rises up the ranks, but as the series progresses, it may manifest in him attempting to leave the Yakuza life behind altogether. Somehow, he's always roped back in, leading to more action-packed adventures and unforgettable moments.
こいつら腹すかしとってのう。悪いけど、餌になったりや。
One element that makes the story of Yakuza so engaging is that each game builds upon the last. There are numerous narrative through lines present, making Yakuza feel somewhat like a television series. The serialized nature of the content may be intimidating, as it makes the prospect of starting with, say, Yakuza 4 seem ill-advised, but the player's commitment is rewarded with an engrossing plot that seems to grow larger and larger with each game. The series features a huge cast that extends far beyond just Kazuma, with many characters becoming fan favorites over multiple entries, such as the delightfully demented Goro Majima. As compelling as the ensemble can be, Kazuma manages to consistently remain the star of the show. He's a stoic, incredibly disciplined individual, which could have led to a flat, unremarkable character. However, Kiryu is anything but. He manages to deliver a surprising amount of humor in such frequently dire circumstances, and just possesses a general swagger that would put most video game protagonists to shame. He's also incredibly loyal to those who loves, a rare trait in such a betrayal-heavy world. Despite often implementing violent solutions, Kazuma feels like a person who values diplomacy and discussion, only turning to violence when he must. There's often a pervasive sense that he sees the error of the Yakuza ways and would rather live a life free from conflict and politics. Ultimately, Kazuma Kiryu is what most great characters are: complicated. He serves as a much-needed constant through Yakuza's countless twists and turns. Yakuza is predicated on high-octane beat-em-up action. Each game features real-time combat that encourages you to pummel your opponents into oblivion. The actual fighting mechanics are super simple, with a light and heavy attack mapped to different face buttons. You can utilize different combinations of button presses to pull off combo attacks, but ultimately, button mashing can take you far. If you're worried about having to memorize combos a la Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, fear not. Yakuza is not a character action game. Still, some enemies can put up a serious fight, so you'd be well advised to hone your skills before setting off in search of tougher opponents. Each game features a huge myriad of unlockable skills that can be acquired by accruing experience points. The combat in Yakuza is consistently engaging and visceral, but often feels like a means to an end. I get so drawn into the story of each game, I find myself moving to each cutscene as quickly as possible. This isn't to say that the fights aren't fun, they are, but they're just not the main selling point of the franchise and can sometimes feel a bit intrusive. Boss fights in particular can run much longer than they should, with your antagonists possessing comically large health bars. Regardless, beating down another sassy gangster is always therapeutic, and executing heat actions, extremely strong attacks that can be unleashed by filling up a bar during combat, allow for ultimate catharsis. You'll travel to many locations in your quest for criminal domination, but most of Yakuza takes place in and around the seedy streets of Kamurocho. This crime-ridden city plays host to most of the game's story missions, in addition to a wealth of side content. Every Yakuza game features a bevy of sub-stories that are completely optional, but well worth exploring if you want to get the most out of the Yakuza experience. The scenarios in which these missions place you range from the odd to the absolutely absurd. One minute you're beating bad guys with a blunt object, and the next, you're pretending to be a stranger's boyfriend to appease her disapproving father. Beyond these narrative-driven opportunities, Kamurocho also contains plenty of side content completely unburdened by exposition, such as playing darts or hitting the batting cages. All of this content contributes to the sense that Kamurocho is truly alive. Every game in the series features this city to some degree, which may sound disappointing, but this consistency enables the player to develop a connection with an environment unlike anything else I've experienced with games. If you play through the full series, you'll get to explore Kamurocho through numerous decades, allowing you to see how the city changes with the events of the series. Despite how full it is of antagonistic crazy people, Kamurocho starts to feel like home after a while. There's a strangely cozy feeling that comes with exploring its hidden nooks and back alleys. You could call it an open world of sorts, but it's small enough to enable copious detail to be packed in. I do want to clearly note that every game in the series does offer at least one other hub location to explore, so you're not always confined to the same place. Beyond that, story missions often take you through linear, dungeon-esque levels that vary the pacing even more. As you can see, Yakuza features a huge amount of content in each title, allowing players to engage with whatever they'd like. The breadth is truly staggering, with some entries featuring side content that could almost justify entire other games, such as a business or restaurant sim. It's impressive and appreciated in equal measure, but sometimes it feels like the series isn't sure how to present the player with all that it has to offer. The pacing of Yakuza is a troublesome area for the franchise, with frequent padding that often dulls the impact of the game's stories. The narrative is often so gripping that having to jump through hoops to see what happens next almost feels like the developers are messing with you. Yakuza 5 is the most egregious, featuring an often glacial pace that makes you wonder what RGG studio, Yakuza's developer, was thinking. However, in the face of everything that this franchise does right, the pacing problems amount to little more than a nitpick. Given how many entries there have been in this series, it's fair to question if some level of franchise fatigue may be setting in, which the devs were clearly concerned about. The 8th mainline entry, titled Yakuza Like a Dragon, drew eyeballs back in 2020 when it adopted an entirely new genre. Gone was the real-time beat-em-up action, replaced with turn-based RPG combat. Beyond the gameplay reinvention, the title also receives a sort of narrative reset as well, with newcomer Ichiban Kasuga stepping in as fresh series protagonist. It's a lot of change, and may turn some purists off, but Like a Dragon turned out to be one of my all-time favorite entries in the series. As we look ahead to the future of this franchise, more change emerges. The newest Yakuza game, subtitled Infinite Wealth, drops the historic titling altogether, instead adopting Like a Dragon as the new franchise name for Western audiences. As bizarre a title as Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is, players don't seem to mind, as this latest entry is the fastest selling game in the franchise to date. It's incredible to consider that at one point, the Yakuza series completely stopped being released in the West, as an American localization wasn't deemed lucrative enough to be worth the effort. Thankfully, a passionate and growing fan base has helped Sega to realize the value in exposing this incredible franchise to as many people as possible. Despite the growing global attention, each game can still be played with the original Japanese voice acting, which for my money is the only way to play it.
極道ってのは人に恐れられてなんぼだろうが、脅すんだったら一度でちゃんと決めてこいや!
The Yakuza franchise proves that you don't need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to create a great game. The developers have smartly recycled environments and assets when necessary to achieve their ambition despite budgetary limitations. It's not the production values that make this series so special, but the heart that it possesses. It's abundantly clear how much love is baked into these games, with each one containing just as much sincerity as spectacle. All of this is packed into an incredibly bizarre and unique atmosphere that never ceases to amaze. One minute you're watching a 10-minute cutscene dealing with the intricate political fabric of the Tojo clan, and the next, you're watching two scantily clad women absolutely destroy each other. Oh my god. If this baffling juxtaposition sounds compelling, then I implore you to give Yakuza a try. You've got little to lose and a whole lot to gain.
ああ、そうだ。手加減はいらねえ。死にてえやつだけかかってこい!